Welcome all, January 4th, 2 o'clock workshop, Curry County Board of Commissioners. The first project that we're going to be looking at is discussion, working on an economic sanctuary, reopen small businesses and resolution of support for Douglas County reopening plan. Summer Madison, Economic Development Coordinator, and yours truly. That would be item 3A. So we have, where did Miranda go? Because we have people calling into this meeting or videoing in, zooming in. I think I hear a familiar voice. Miranda? We're looking for Coordinator Madison and our call-in people.
I believe she's coming.
Director Trost, do you want to speak first?
Sure.
This was originally from former Commissioner Rhodes' desk and interest, and Commissioner Rhodes, while we're waiting, why don't you just give us your rundown again on, you mentioned, wasn't it a county in Southern California, maybe even San Diego?
Well, actually, it was in Northern California. It was
Okay.
Placer County. And then when we started doing some research, we found there were a number of other counties here in Oregon that were considering the same opportunities, Yamhill County, Douglas County, and a few others. So I believe Summer took the initiative and got the document from Yamhill County, and it pretty much said exactly what we needed to say in order to create an opportunity for our businesses to go back to work.
Thank you. Well said. And I see Ms. Madison just arrived. We have, do we have, there's Dr. Ely. This is probably going to take about an hour, but it is very good information. The first Zoom meeting that we had a week ago was just remarkably informative. Dr. Ely, can you hear us okay?
Yes, sir, I can. Who am I addressing?
You have to my left, far left, Director of Finance, Brad Rickert. To my immediate left, Curry County Commissioner Christopher Pash. Myself, Court Boyce. To my right, Commissioner John Herzog. To his right, Curry County Council, John Huddle. To his right, Staff Jesuit. Also, we have former Commissioner George Rhodes in the audience. And he was kind of the initiator of this concept to combine with the great work you are doing with the Yamhill County Commissioners, in particular Commissioner Mary Starrett and Rick Olson. So I'm going to turn the meeting over real quick here to Curry County Economic Development Coordinator Madison, and just really appreciate very much you all being here. And again, I'm going to emphasize how, whoop, did we lose them? Okay. How informative the time was with you and your staff. So, and I see we have Chris Brosey. How's our volume with you? Mr. Brosey? Yep. Mark Thielman? Hello?
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, you're just a little loud, not too bad. And we have a little background noise there. And is this Commissioner Roberts? Or Colleen Roberts?
Yes, I'm listening.
Great to have you here, Commissioner. Great to have you here. Okay, your volume was pretty good as well. And then we have one more we don't know the name of. So, Coordinator Madison, thank you for the work on this. You can proceed.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Summer Madison, Economic Development. And, you know, initially I felt I was going to be the one responsible for producing a majority of the materials being presented today. Dr. Ely has been kind enough to share his knowledge, which definitely exceeds mine in this topic. So I'm going to share a couple of things, and then I'm going to turn it over to the doctor because he needs about an hour. And so I want to give him as much time as possible. Just a quick thank you, Commissioner Boyce and the Board of Commissioners. Thank you for your support and your time to this matter. It's really urgent, and we've got a lot of support, and it's building every day. And our small businesses are excited that you guys are being proactive in this movement. So thank you. Mary Sterrett, Commissioner with Yamhill County. Dr. Ely. Amber Sims, Hinterplantner with All Stages Marketing. Mark Thieleman, the Alsea School District Superintendent of Benton County. Jay Trost, owner of Fat Irish Pub. Melissa Cribbins, Commissioner Coos County. George Rhodes, Curry County Commissioner and owner of the Beachfront Bistro.
And if I may, I apologize for overlooking former Juvenile and Parks Director Jay Trost. Now is quite active and productive in Brookings. Sorry I overlooked you, sir. Thank you. Forgive my interruption, Ms. Madison.
Okay, quick statement, because I just want to kind of put this into perspective before we move forward. This is a statement from a business or a restaurant owner. We have two in the room. I'm sure they can relate to this statement. As I walk into the grocery store with 30 other people at the same time, I think about my restaurant, which allows parties of 6 total, and meticulously spaces out reservations by 10 minutes, ensuring guests that aren't from the same party do not arrive at the same time. As I take a cart that had just been where the handle was sanitized, I think about my restaurant, which invested thousands of dollars just so far on ink and paper to print disposable menus to ensure no two guests touch the same menu. As I walk over to the produce aisle with 15 to 20 other people around me, I'm reminded of the strict no mingling and no walking around the restaurant other than to use the washroom or enter or exit policy we have in place, and the 6-foot distance between tables, which has cut our capacity in half. As I watch the woman next to me pick up apples with her hand, check them over closely, and then put them back on the open pile, and repeats this until she finds the perfect apples, the same thing that all other people that day who want an apple will then do, and then put those apples into their mouths, I think about the 2-step sanitation process in place at my restaurant for all cutlery and dishes and glassware in between every single guest, and the sanitation of every surface guests touch, which includes tables, chairs, salt and pepper shakers, etc. As I watch the man in the next aisle over ignore or not notice the directional arrows on the ground, I think about my restaurant and the constant redirecting our staff does of guests by locking certain doors, blocking areas off, and the work my team does to simply not allow guests to walk where they are not supposed to. Last part. As I walk down the cereal aisle, I see a person with their mask off so they can talk on the phone, and I'm reminded of my restaurant where our masking policy has lost us so much business, as we will not allow guests who do not cover their nose, mouth, and chin while sitting at their designated seat, as per the bylaw in place for our region. As I check out at the cashier, I use my debit card to pay and see the plastic film covering the terminal. It was not sanitized after the person before me used it. I'm reminded of the sanitizer used on the debit terminals in between each guest every time at my restaurant.
May I interrupt 1 second here? Commissioner Roberts, can you still hear us okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you. Did you want to make a quick statement before we get into our program here? Jackson County Commissioner, it's just wonderful to have you here, and welcome.
Not, I have to speak with Dr. Ely early.
Yeah,
So I have a bad echo.
Yeah, we have a breakdown in your audio.
So I'll just listen.
Okay, thank you very much, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Madison. Anything else there?
So yeah, we do understand that Jackson County is fairly proactive in looking at the similar programs that we are looking at, along with many other counties in the state. You can search it up on the internet, and you're not going to find a whole lot, because I don't think they want us talking about it. Okay, so I've got some other documents to share later, but we'll pull up Dr. Ely's presentation. I'm not sure if he'll introduce himself, so I would like to do that if that's okay with you, Doctor.
That's totally fine. I had inserted a bio slide as well, Summer, just in case. And before if it's okay with the commissioners, is it okay if we allow Superintendent Thielman to speak first? I think he had something he wanted to share as well about his school district, and because I'm going to be a lot more long-winded, I think. So if that's okay with everyone. Summer, is that all right?
Absolutely.
Certainly. Would turn the volume down a little.
All right, I'm on the spot. Thanks, Dr. Ely. And commissioners, thanks for letting me chime in real quick. I also wrote a letter in support of the Yamhill County Commissioners on invitation as well. And just the reason I kind of got thrust into this because in LC and Benton County, it's a tri-county area, so Corvallis, Albany, Eugene, Junction City, etc. So I just kind of give everybody the geography. And my school district, we receive kids from all of those communities.
Thank you.
And so many times I was called by the health department or in OHA or Benton County Health, and they were very concerned that we have such that we serve so many communities and we're bringing all these kids in from these hotspots, and they were literally convinced that we would have a whole bunch of COVID outbreaks. So that's what it's just happenstance. So we implement very rigid COVID protocols. We're the only K-12 school district that opened in Benton County since August, and as of today, we have kids back in school, and even after the holidays, we have 0 reported student cases with COVID. We've had a couple staff members who have gotten COVID. All of them, their sources were all traced outside of school, so none of them were found to have been infected at work. And I think you'll see the same thing. Some of the national data about restaurants is the same, even movie theaters. And so the real issue is if the numbers were, and that's I think knowledgeable about, but what connected me to all this is I started on my own because I'm a former science major and I've done research back in my younger days. And so I'm very familiar with statistics and efficacy and analysis, and these things just weren't jiving. So I sent a letter to you guys that kind of outlines that. I started working with the epidemiologist in Benton County and OHA, and what was really kind of serendipitous is that a lot of my conclusions ended up echoing what I've since learned from Dr. Ely's work. And that we really need good data. We need to have good data to make good decisions about a real pandemic, which is real. And if we have controls and criteria that are ever changing, and suddenly cases continue to expand, but hospitalizations can go down, something's wrong. And so it absolutely devastated me when we went to the second lockdown that Governor Brown did. And we're a high poverty community in LC. It's devastating to our parents to be out of work. The one good thing is our parents can send their kids to school, which is very limited other places in the state. So the fact that you guys are considering resolution to open up and to support your community and your business neighborhood, I'm here on the record saying I could not recommend it more highly. The real science and data and the work we've done in LC proves that schools are safe to be open with appropriate COVID mitigations. So, and I would say the same is true for restaurants or any business, as long as they're using controlled protocol. The evidence is real clear, and I don't know the details. I did get a copy of Dr. Ely's slides. I looked through them. They're fascinating. Dr. Ely, if your work is only half true, and so that your numbers are double what you say, we still have a problem. And so I'm anxious to hear from Dr. Ely. I just wanted you guys to hear that from a guy who never wanted to be in this situation. But I'm absolutely adamant to come and do these kinds of things because the experience we've had in real life, not real politics or not real whatever, but real life in LC is very different from the story we're being told. There you go.
Questions, board, for Mr. Thielman?
Right.
I just have two quick ones. How long have you been a school superintendent?
For about 15 years.
You know, we just lost a wonderful one in one of our 3 high school school districts here. So get the word out. We're looking for a new superintendent. We're going to miss him something fierce. And if you want to come to the coast, we can really. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Had to throw that in.
It turned into a job interview. This is great. All right, gentlemen, first, let me say thank you so much for giving us this opportunity to talk about the data. I'm going to be as brief as possible, and please feel free to interrupt me if something is not clear. I have been a teacher for over 20 years. I love teaching. I love education. I love critical thinking, and hopefully the work that you're going to see here, which is a labor of love, is a reflection of that. I also, and if I could share, right now, Summer, I'm not able to share screen. Can we enable that feature? One of your tech gurus
Good
over
job.
there, enable that feature for me.
You need Miranda?
And while that's happening, I want to tell you, literally 10 minutes before we started this, I got off with a graduate of mine who is a stepmom, and she's dealing with a absolute nightmare situation of one of her teen daughters has been exhibiting very destructive behavior that we've been seeing and hearing more and more from teens throughout the country. And my intention with the work that I'm doing and the work that my team is doing is really centered not only on the protection of citizens in general, but especially as advocacy for
Dr. Ely?
throughout our society, which we feel have gotten pretty swept under the rug with some of these orders, and we're very concerned about the ramifications of those potential scenarios.
Dr. Ely, hang on.
Closed by organizer and okay, and
Dr. Ely,
let's see.
I don't think he's hearing me.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Hang on one moment. We're just trying to get you that shared screen. And I'm going to have you
So
back.
we're good to go.
I'm going to have you back up 3 or 4 sentences, so we don't want to miss what you had there, please.
Yes, sir. So let me just minimize this a little bit. Close that right there. Nope.
I don't know if we're helping you or not.
Okay, well, it's just going to be odd. No, you're helping me. I'm just getting acclimated. I'm a Zoom guy, so I'm just getting acclimated here. And let me see if I can share my. Nope, can't turn that on. Okay.
That'll work.
So, gentlemen, what I wanted to share with you is literally 10 minutes before this started, I got off with a graduate of mine who is a stepmom, devoted stepmother of 2 teenage daughters, and her husband have been having incredible problems with their oldest teenage daughter, who's been exhibiting very destructive signs. She's 14. She's taken up drinking and drug abuse. She's been going on joyrides with a bunch of other underage teens driving around in the city, and they are really at their wits' end with this. And I know that is not an atypical story in our country right now, and that's just wanted to echo what Superintendent Thielman was saying, that it's so important for us to get our kids back into their support networks, into the institutions that can support them, so that we can take a full scope of really the damage, that's collateral damage that is being caused, in my professional opinion. So thank you for considering that. That is the intention of really all of our work, to champion the causes of accuracy and information, but so that we can make good decisions with that information that can have a positive impact, especially on our children, and while we also protect our citizens who are most at risk. So what I'm going to do today, and I'm going to do my best to be, and I wish I have a bunch of things. There we go. Oh, thank you. Okay.
Nice photo. Nice photo.
So I can't see everybody anymore, but if you have a question, just sing out. I wanted to give everybody a little bit about my background. I'm a licensed naturopathic doctor with a doctorate of naturopathic medicine from a 4-year program approved by the Association of Accredited Naturopathic Medical College. I have a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering from UCLA. I'm a Jackie Robinson Foundation Scholar and alumnus. Board certified in holistic nutrition by the National Association of Nutrition Professionals, and I have over 20 years of teaching experience, including at the university graduate level. I'm the founder of an Oregon-based nonprofit, the Energetic Health Institute, and I'm the author of over 189 copyrights on nutrition and natural medicine. As well, I'm the lead author on 4 research papers concerning COVID-19, including our signature piece to date, a peer-reviewed manuscript that is currently being used in at least 5 legal proceedings in Arizona, Ohio, New Mexico, and also in a federal case that was just filed at the end of the year. My research team, the COVID research team that I founded, has over 14,000 collective volunteer hours dedicated to this. I want to let everybody know I am also an ordained minister for All Faiths. I volunteer basketball coach for teens. I miss my team so much, and all my kids, and I love hardworking people with good hearts, and I know that's what we have here. I love my fuzzy babies, and I love big hugs, something that we got to get back to, as well as laughing. And I'm here to do my best to be in service for God, country, my family, and for Mother Nature. So hopefully that gives everybody an understanding of where I'm coming from on this. So through December 30th, looking at OHA data, we'll see the actual references for this. But looking at OHA data, 56.5% of fatalities died in the senior assisted living congregate care centers. That's 810 of the 1,433 fatalities. This still makes up our highest risk area and setting, and I still personally and professionally do not feel that we've done enough to protect our seniors in these situations. 3.4% of fatalities between December 29th and January 2nd had no underlying conditions. So what that tells us is the vast majority of people who are dying with pre-existing conditions, diabetes, high blood pressure, hypertension, respiratory disease, things of that nature, as has been the case and we've known since March of 2020. An interesting and good stat for us is only 5.68% of cases statewide have required hospitalization. So the vast majority of people who are contracting the SARS-CoV-2 virus have not needed medical attention to the point where they would need to be hospitalized. That's good news for us, welcome news. And there is a category I'm going to bring to your attention in the weekly OHA reports called sporadic epidemiologic leakage that has more than doubled household transmission for the 6th straight week. And what that does is it raises concern in the accuracy of the PCR testing, because if we are going to see false positives, they are likely to be listed in the sporadic epidemiologic leakage. We have become aware of a study from the JAMA network, so this is the Journal of American Medical Association. It's still in progress, but the preliminary results on it, university researchers have assessed 54 different studies that comprise 77,758 participants, and found that the most likely place for transmission are in households, as we would expect, not sporadically, meaning we don't know where they came from. Continuing on this sporadic epidemiologic point of view, key findings in this JAMA network paper were that individuals with symptoms were more than 25 times likelier to infect household members than those without symptoms. One of the things I've been challenging, gentlemen, since the inception is the notion of asymptomatic carrier theory. It is a theory. Dr. Fauci has admitted as such. We do not, to this day, have any proof, definitive proof of asymptomatic transmission, and I will explain my point of view on that, because I know that must sound a little crazy. The asymptomatic, pre-symptomatic secondary attack rate is not statistically different from 0. And the confidence interval is technically 0.7 plus or minus 4.2, resulting in a range of negative 3.5 to 4.9. But attack rates cannot be negatives, so it gets truncated to 0. Statistically, what this means, folks, is that we are not confident that asymptomatic transmission is possible. I will let you know I am reviewing a study from China which I'm not necessarily confident in what the data they're sharing, but I'm reviewing it, and it's apparently a look at about 10 million different cases, and it's further proving that asymptomatic transmission as a theory is not only flawed, but should be put in the garbage can. But I'm not prepared to talk about that study today. Now, this comes from the OHA. Sporadic cases, in terms of epidemiologic linkage, the sporadic cases are cases who do not have known exposure to another case or outbreak. That means that we don't know how they got this. It just magically appeared. This, if we're going to find false positives, it's going to be in this linkage designation. So here's the concern. The concern, and you'll see in blue, and this is again the weekly report from the OHA. The concern is that in blue we see sporadic linkage, right? Well, we know that the greatest place for transmission is going to be households. So what we should see consistently is that household should be leading across the board. And we see, for the most part, household outstrips every other cause, right? It's pretty clear here, except for sporadic designation. And now for the 6th week, sporadic epidemiologic linkage, meaning we don't know where this person contracted SARS-CoV-2, it has more than doubled household, where we know that's where transmission should occur for most people, for 6 straight weeks. And you can see the egregious levels at which this is happening. I would bet quite a sum of money, gentlemen, that this is made up of a lot of false positives. False positives for PCR testing. We'll talk about that in a second. Now, one of the things I do want to bring to your attention is that in medicine we have medical standards, and one of the ways that we could easily prove whether as asymptomatic transmission is possible is to prove that an asymptomatic carrier exists. This has never been proven anywhere in the world to date, and I've been looking for this for much of the last 12 months. In order for a person to be asymptomatic and be able to transmit this virus to another human being, they would have to have no clinical symptoms. They would also have to be positive for a blood viral antigen load, meaning that there's virus present in the bloodstream. And they would have to be simultaneously negative for serologic IgM and IgG antibodies. We have the ability to check for this in literally every person, and we are not checking for this to disprove this theory. So we are reliant on studies which are confirming what we have suspected for a long time, that asymptomatic transmission is not possible. It's a flawed theory. When I go to the CDC's website to look at some of their research that they're quoting, I want you all to be aware of, in particular, this 4th series of studies that they've collected. Although replication-competent virus was not isolated 3 weeks after symptom onset, recovered patients can continue to have SARS-CoV-2 RNA detected in their upper respiratory specimens for up to 12 weeks. What that means is that a person can, even though they're not contagious, even though they're not able to transmit the virus to another person, they can still test positive via PCR testing for up to 12 weeks after they are no longer contagious. And that could lead to a lot of people being sporadically, epidemiologically linked as positive, even though it should be a false positive. Investigation of 285 persistently positive persons, which included 126 persons who had developed recurrent symptoms, found no secondary infections among 790 contacts attributable to contact with these case patients. That means that even people who are persistently positive, having a tough time getting over the infection, are still not able to transmit a virus to another person. And in fact, a replication-competent virus has not been recovered after 10 days following symptom onset. So what you see throughout here is the CDC consistently talking about you have to have symptoms in order for this to be in order for you to be contagious. This notion that you could unknowingly pass this on to grandma is preposterous. It's scientifically preposterous at this point. So that's the preliminary. Before I get into the data, are there any questions or comments, gentlemen?
Doing very good. I'm interested in your 3 studies, but not to stop you now. Keep going in the direction you're going. Thank you.
Absolutely, sir. So when we look at data reported through December 30th, reported on December 30th, excuse me, we want to do a population comparison. So here's the state of Oregon versus Curry County. Crisis is we're about in the 11th month of it. Total cases statewide, 110,545. Curry County, if we go by the Curry County Public Health Department, it's at 272. If we go by what the OHA says 222. And that's why I have that little 50 there as a question mark, because I'm assuming that's where the discrepancy is. But when we look at this, we see that statewide, the effective spread in terms of population is about 2.47% of the entire population of the state is tested positive. Curry is well below that at 0.96%, so it's far under the state, which is already very, very low after 11 months. And as you can see, I have these references here. You're welcome to click on them, and I will make sure all commissioners have a copy of this presentation following the end of the presentation, so you can verify what I'm sharing. When we look at that, we want to take a look at Oregon data for through December 30th. So that breakdown of cases, because one of the things I'm really adamant about, gentlemen, is that we look at this based upon age demographic. This is a very clear viral infection that we have to, where age demographics matter more than almost anything besides pre-existing health conditions. To me, you put those 2 things together, advanced age, our senior elder population, with pre-existing health conditions, you have the recipe for high risk. Outside of that, though, you don't. Everything else seems to be incredibly low risk. So in Oregon, we've had, in the 0 to 19 age range, we've had 16,925 cases. In the 20 to 49 age range, 60,000 cases. In the 50 to 69 age range, 9,700 cases. And in the 50 to 69 age range, 23,000 cases. In the 70 plus age range, 9,700 cases. So we see where the people who are being infected, are working class and young. I mean, this is really what we're seeing. So what we should see is a commensurate in hospitalization rate and fatality rate in those groups if this is truly an emergent situation. That's not what we see, though. When we get into hospitalizations, in the state of Oregon, there's been 6,277, according to OHA, hospitalizations reported as of December 30th. The percentage of cases needing hospitalization, 5.68%, like we covered earlier. The percentage of the population needing hospitalization, though, is 0.15%. It's incredibly small. Now, confirmed currently hospitalized, 515 as of the 30th, and it's trending down. Percentage of cases currently hospitalized, 0.47%, so we're not seeing this be the burden on our healthcare system, which was one of our original concerns back in March. Flatten the curve. And percentage of population currently hospitalized is 0.012%. I'm not seeing, in my opinion, professional opinion, an emergency situation, okay? Now, I'd like to compare Curry, but the Curry County Public Health Department was not publishing this data, so that's what you see here, and there are the references. Now, I'd like to give screenshots so that people can say, you don't have to take my word for it, and I encourage people to verify what I'm doing. So this is for the update on 12/28 that gets published on the 30th, and what you can see here is there were 515 people confirmed hospitalizations. I have very real problems with the suspected cases being listed. A great problem with that at this point, especially with the expensive amount of PCR testing that is readily available. So 515. Now, if we go back just 2 weeks prior, it was 539, and that's why I say we're trending down. Now, when we look at Oregon data, we reported on, again, December 30th, and we look at it from a fatalities perspective. The thing I want to get into everybody's head, if I can, is that pandemics are based upon percentage of fatalities. They're not based upon percentage of cases. We cannot turn this into a case-demic.
We have to look at this as what are the negative outcomes. If we're talking about long-term effects, the estimate from the OHA is about 0.8% of cases will have long-term health consequences. So under 1% of cases will have long-term. Okay, so we have a rough idea of what that number is. We look at total fatalities, 1,433 over the course of 11 months, but with 810 of those associated with senior assisted living and congregate care facilities. And you can verify what I'm saying in these links here. Now, Curry County has had a grand total of 3 fatalities over the 11-month time period. So again, that's not something, in my professional opinion, that constitutes an emergency situation. Further, one of the things that we seldom discuss, and I think this is to our great disadvantage as a society, is the estimated recoveries. How many people have gotten this but are recovered? So what I do is I use the CDC's formula, which is you take the total cases 10 days prior, and you subtract out current day fatalities and current hospitalizations. So we take the 110,545 number, we take a number 10 days before that, and then what we find is that an estimated 98,360 Oregonians have recovered, and in Curry County that estimate is right now at 218 recoveries. 218 people have recovered, 3 have passed away. I also don't have an age demographic breakdown on the Curry County fatalities, unfortunately. So we look at that in terms of what percentage of cases have died. In the state of Oregon, it's 1.3%. In Curry County, it's 1.1%. Again, that does not warrant emergency designation, in my professional opinion. Percentage of population that's died in Oregon, 0.033%. In Curry County, 0.013%. Again, these are not numbers, statistics that support an emergency situation, in my professional opinion. So now we look at Oregon data for fatalities based upon age demographics. Good news for all of us. Fatalities in the 0 to 19 age range, 0, not 1. Fatalities in the 20 to 49 age range, 40, 2.8% of all the fatalities. Fatalities in the 50 to 69 age range, 20.7% of all fatalities, 296 total. But it's when you get to the fatalities in the 70 and older age range that you start to see the true picture of where the high risk is, 1,097. And that's why I urge people to stop looking at this as an aggregate where we've collected every person who's died and we group them all together. And therefore we should have a blanket policy that affects every single person in the state adversely. Rather, we can target and really protect our high risk, and really significantly protect our high risk demographic while still understanding that this isn't an emergency for those in the low risk, and how can we get them safely back into their lives, and also get them back into their, especially for kids, support networks, which is so essential right now. What I wanted to point out to you all, commissioners, is that when we look at the OHA data, and on a daily basis they publish a list of everybody who's passed away, we see some very common things. He had underlying conditions, presence of underlying conditions and location of death are being confirmed. He had underlying conditions. He had underlying conditions. She had no known underlying conditions. Okay, this is 86-year-old woman. This is one of 2 that didn't have any underlying conditions. She had underlying conditions. She had underlying. You see this over and over again. And every now and then you see something even a little crazier. For Oregon's 1,478th COVID death is a 70-year-old woman in Washington County who tested positive, but look where she tested positive, November 10th. She dies over a month later, and she had underlying conditions. Well, what were those underlying conditions? What is her cause of death? This is the questions that we should have. So what I did was I looked at Oregon data from December 29th through January 2nd, and we had a total of 59 fatalities listed. The age range was 45 to 100, and here's the age demographic breakdown. 1 in the 40 to 49 age range, 2 in the 50 to 59 age range, 9 in the 60 to 69 age range, and then 18 in the 70 to 79 age range. This is what you expect for all causes of death. Unfortunately, the older we get, the more susceptible we come to succumbing. 80 to 89, 19 fatalities. 90 to 99, 9 fatalities. And we even had one fatality over 100 that was counted as COVID. Now, how many of those had confirmed underlying conditions? 49 out of 59. How many are still being investigated because they think they have underlying conditions? 8 out of the 59. And how many had no underlying conditions at all? 2. 86-year-old female that you just saw, and a 71-year-old male. So then it begs the question, well, what is our normal life expectancy? 78.54 years as of 2018. When we put this information side by side, what we see is that Oregon cases by age, if this is really an emergent situation, we should see these pie charts be very similar, cases and fatalities. If there's a lot of cases in a certain age demographic, we should see a lot of fatalities in that age demographic, but that's not what we're seeing. In the 0 to 19 age range, good percentage of cases, 15% of all the cases in that age range, 0% of the fatalities. In the 20 to 49 age range, 54% of all the cases, 2.8% of the fatalities. In the 50 to 69 age range, 21.3% of the cases and 21.7% of the fatalities. So you see, there's where you go, okay, that kind of matches up, that makes sense. But here's where it doesn't make sense at all. 70 and older, 8.9% of the cases, but 76.6% of the fatalities. This is the high risk. This is where the emergency is. And our citizens, our Oregonians, who we love dearly, 70 and older. Now, one of the problems that my team found in our research in 2020 was data security, and that we were looking at it nationally, but we actually found something in Oregon that's a problem. In Oregon, and we have recorded this video to prove what we are saying, because I know we took some flack for making this statement in a previous testimony that we provided. You can access this portal. Any Oregonian, anyone in the world can access this portal. There are no passwords required in order to access the portal to submit information on COVID-19.
Cool.
And provider ID is optional. I know Superintendent Thielman has confirmed this. I know my team has confirmed this. We have done a video on this. As I think we all know, this is a problem. For something that is as important as accuracy of data, we cannot have an unprotected site where a person can submit anonymously a medical record. I think that's preposterous. All right, but that can happen, and I did verify it again last night. Here is the law on data submission, which is mandating that everything be e-submitted now. And I find it interesting that everything is being demanded to be submitted on through that portal, and there is no password protection on that portal. I just find that very, very concerning. Problem number 2 is data integrity. Data integrity, on May 5th, the OHA was publishing comorbidity, was publishing pre-existing health conditions and giving us a good understanding of everything. But by May 12th, they stopped doing it. I talked to Dr. Seidlinger and Ms. Heiberg from the OHA. They were awesome to get on a Zoom call with me on June 30th. I really appreciate them getting on a Zoom call. I have every intention of wanting to collaborate with them in the future. I will let all of you gentlemen know that I sent out, and my team sent out, hundreds of emails requesting communication with various state public health specialists in every state in the country. Dr. Seidlinger and Ms. Heiberg were the only two to respond and the only two to join us on the Zoom call, and I think that deserves to be applauded and commended incredibly. Now, we got on the call with them because what we saw on May 4th in their weekly report was this. They were reporting underlying medical conditions among COVID cases who have died, so that we could have an understanding of how many, who had what. And this, as a physician, a doctor gives me tremendous understanding of which patients are particularly at the highest risk: cardiovascular, neurological, neurodevelopmental, Alzheimer's, dementia, things like that. Diabetes. I mean, these are patients that we need to worry about. But inexplicably, by May 12th, they had this to say: with this edition of the weekly report, OHA has chosen not to produce a table of underlying conditions among people who have died. And subsequently, since then, they have not published any data on this moving forward. And I think that when we're in a public health crisis, it's important for us to expand the amount of data we're sharing, not condense it. And that's exactly what's happened. We've seen subsequent changes from, I wanted to say it was in October at least, that they decided to combine the presumptive cases and confirmed cases in their counts as well, instead of distinguishing them, something that they had been doing, OHA had been doing consistently before then. I'd like to provide evidence that I did speak with Dr. Seidlinger and Ms. Heiberg, and we met with them at 1:30 on June 30th to discuss several key things that we had concerns about. Following that meeting, I did share peer-reviewed nutritional research with Dr. Seidlinger in hopes of engaging in a conversation with him and being able to voluntarily advise the OHA on nutritional guidelines that could be issued in accordance with mask and social distancing guidelines. That subsequent meeting that I had hoped for never took place, even though we followed up and requested several times. And I don't blame Dr. Seidlinger or Ms. Heiberg for that. I don't know what was going on behind the scenes. But I would say that it is urgent for us to still issue nutritional guidelines to all Oregonians, particularly Oregonians at highest risk. So with that in mind, I'd like to take the opportunity for your consideration to pull something from the Linus Pauling Institute at Oregon State University. We have in our backyard the premier nutrient research center in the entire United States. There is no other nutrient research center in the country anywhere near what the Linus Pauling Institute is doing at OSU. Now, this one paper I'm referencing here has 267 peer-reviewed references on nutrition and natural adaptive immunity alone. The key nutrients that they cite are vitamin C, vitamin E, zinc, iron, selenium, vitamin D, A, omega-3 fatty acids, and B complex for mitochondrial energy production. Of particular interest are vitamin C, vitamin D, and zinc. And I think we've all heard at least something about how effectual those are. I can tell you firsthand, in talking with my naturopathic colleagues, we have seen tremendous results clinically with moderate amounts of vitamin D, zinc, and vitamin C. I can tell you that I have been directly involved in the immediate and rapid recovery of at least 40 people who were confirmed COVID using nutrient therapy alone. It has been amazing. What is amazing and what concerns me is that the CDC knew Americans and has known for decades that Americans are nutrient deficient. The CDC houses and conducts the NHANES studies, which are the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey. And they do this every couple of years so that they can get a serologic understanding, a blood understanding of just what is the common nutrient status for Americans. Well, what they've found, and we've known these numbers since about 2002 to 2005. Vitamin C, 31% of Americans had an adequate dietary intake of a very small amount, 75 to 90 milligrams per day. That means Americans aren't even getting 75 to 90 milligrams of vitamin C per day, 31% of Americans. What we've also known is that 21 Americans way back in 2002 had serious vitamin C deficiencies, and that there was an estimated 66 million more that by 2003 would develop serious deficiencies as well, especially if those folks were smokers, vapors, or citizens in low-income groups. It is safe to assume, gentlemen, that as of 2020, well over 100 million Americans had serious vitamin C deficiencies. Vitamin D deficiencies, 93% of Americans had inadequate dietary intakes. Vitamin A, 44% of Americans had inadequate dietary intakes. Vitamin D, 66% of Americans had inadequate dietary intakes. And that requirement goes up for people over 70 years of age. So what we're seeing here is that we, as a society, have been deficient in vitamin C, E, A, and D. All of these are essential nutrients to activate natural adaptive immune response. And in the absence of these nutrients, not only does it place people at risk, but it especially places people 70 years of age and older with pre-existing conditions at great risk. And that's exactly what we've seen throughout this crisis. Now, we also have a factor we have to consider, and that is lower household income citizens. Americans in lower income brackets consistently has had higher prevalence of inadequate intake of vitamin A, C, B6, folate. Why is this an issue? Because so many Americans have lost their jobs, so many Americans have lost their businesses, and are now suffering from lower economic status as a result of the public health policies put in place. When we look at vitamin C, this is one of many peer-reviewed articles. This was actually conducted by Dr. Paul Anderson, composed by Dr. Paul Anderson, who is a writer on our COVID research team. One of the results that he found, which was astounding, was that we knew way back on March 17, 2020, that in a study at the Wuhan epicenter, they took 358 cases. Of those 358 cases, they took 50 of the cases that were moderate to severe with COVID-19. They administered IVAA, which is intravenous ascorbic acid, intravenous vitamin C. You might know this is high-dose vitamin C. And what they found was nothing short of miraculous. They found that all patients who received intravenously dosed vitamin C improved. There was zero mortality in this group of 50. All 50 recovered. And they also noted that the COVID-19 patients that received intravenous vitamin C had hospital stay that was 3 to 5 days shorter than non-IVAA treated patients. And what they found was that the estimated cost per patient per day of treatment would be $12 to $24, and it could be conducted outpatient, meaning you could set people up to do this at home. This is incredibly effective at incredibly low cost. Vitamin D, we have a study out of the Philippines and a study out of Indonesia that both support that if we can get people with a deficient vitamin D status, the probability of becoming severe or critical with COVID-19 was 72.8% versus 77.2% when people had adequate amounts of vitamin D. The Indonesian study confirms this. We see the mortality rate from COVID-19 in the Indonesian study where people who were deficient in vitamin D was 98.8% against 4.1% for the people with adequate amounts of vitamin D. And it gives us some idea of something called a loading dose strategy. Taking an initial loading dose of up to 5-fold the normal dose, so 5,000 is a normal dose, so 20,000 IUs a day for 2 weeks can help raise the level of vitamin D to an adequate level and lower infection risk. What I'm suggesting to you, gentlemen, is that we can do better than masks and social distancing. I would love for us to see us issuing guidelines on nutrition, because that may be the most effective strategy we have yet to employ thus far. Now, when we look at another study, and I'm not going to bore you with tons of studies, but I want to bring a couple to your attention. Vitamin D, magnesium, and B12, same thing. On just minimal amounts of vitamin D, 1,000 IUs a day, 150 milligrams of magnesium, that's nothing, and 500 micrograms of vitamin B12. In people who took these three things, they showed a significant reduction in proportion of patients with clinical deterioration requiring oxygen support. What that means is the people who took this didn't need to go on a ventilator. How cool is that, right? Simple stuff. And I think this is last one on vitamin D. This comes from a study that had 157 references. 10,000 IUs a day of vitamin D3 for a few weeks rapidly rises the concentrations of vitamin D in the bloodstream, and then you follow it up by 5,000, A recent review suggested that using vitamin D loading doses of 200 or 300,000 and 50,000 IU capsules to reduce the risk of severity of COVID-19. 200,000, 300,000, a little extreme, all right, my professional opinion, but it's not crazy. Now, zinc, final thing here, these patients were found to have higher rates of complications, acute respiratory distress syndrome, corticosteroid therapy, prolonged hospital stay, and increased mortality. Who were these patients? People who were deficient in zinc. So what were the conclusions? A significant number of COVID-19 patients were zinc deficient. These zinc deficient patients developed more complications, and the deficiency was associated with a prolonged hospital stay and increased mortality. So what that does for us, and this is for your consideration, and I would be honored to work with anyone who wants to develop nutritional guidelines for Oregonians and Americans at large. When we look at teen and adult populations, and I think this is a key way for us to get kids back in school, is to issue guidance of something very simple. Vitamin C, 3,000 milligrams per day, 6 days a week. Vitamin D, 14-day loading dose of 10,000 IUs per day, followed by 5,000 IUs per day for 6 days each week. Zinc, simple, 25 milligrams per day, small little capsule. Vitamin A, 5,000 IUs per day for 6 days per week, a multivitamin, and taking some omega-3 fatty acids. We do that, and every single kid, every single teacher, every single administrator has an incredibly powered immune system that is going to be able to deal with whatever comes their way, SARS-CoV-2 or anything else for that matter. So when we get past that, there are a couple additional concerns. One of them is data accuracy, of course. How is the OHA ensuring the same person isn't counted multiple times as new cases? Well, we address that in our paper here. We'll make sure all of you have a copy of our peer-reviewed fourth paper right here on federal law. And what we believe at this point, based upon our research, that the CDC violated federal law in 3 important instances in compromising the integrity of all data in the country. And the fourth is transparency. And I know a lot has been talked about in the last few weeks about PCR testing. We have it confirmed that the FDA is recommending, even though Dr. Fauci is on record as saying, if you get a cycle threshold of 35 or more, the chances of it being replication competent are minuscule. You almost never can culture a virus from a 37 threshold cycle, even 36. It's just dead nucleoids, period. So what he's saying here is if you try to amplify the sample over 35 times, then you're not getting anything that you can use. So anyone over 35 times should not be considered positive. However, the FDA says that they are going to amplify it to 40. And if you test positive for a signal at 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, you're going to be listed as positive. And that's where we feel like that is a false positive. Now, I put a couple links in here. One of them is the Corman and Drostin review, which is a peer-reviewed paper that expels out very clearly and in excruciating detail the number of errors and problems with current PCR testing. This is a video, so you can listen to what Dr. Fauci said, and this brings up the concerns that we have about the dramatic increase in sporadic epidemiologic leakages. My suspicion right now is that this, and this is heavily influenced by false positives. And I have a great concern that, again, that is compromising the accuracy of the data. So nationally, to finish this up, and thank you so much, everyone, for your endurance on this. I know this is a lot of information to give at once, and forgive me, it's not the teaching style I normally like to employ. But when we look at the national level, one of the things that I'm really big on is what is the recovery rate? I want to know, I understand the fatality rate, but I want to know how many people are recovering. So per the CDC, this is per their COVID data tracker, as of December 30th, from the age 0 to 17, we see that the fatality rate is 0.014%, meaning the estimated recovery rate is 99.986%. From age 18 to 49, the estimated fatality rate is 0.142%, which makes the estimated recovery rate 99.858%. And age 50 to 64, all pre-retirement, the fatality rate is only 1.177%, meaning that the recovery rate is 98.823%. When we aggregate that for everybody between 64 years of age or younger, it means that the recovery rate, if you are under 65 years of age, is 99.625%. If you're in the 65 to 74 age range, that means that your recovery rate is 95.49%. Great, it's not great, but it's still good. But if somebody said we're concerned about that group, I would agree with them. But it's when we get to the 75 and older that we see where the heavy influence of all of the fatality data, and thus the designation of this being a pandemic, comes from. Because the vast majority of fatalities are over 75 years of age, and we see that the recovery rate, even in that advanced age range, is still 85.05%. So overall, right now, as of the 30th, if we include everybody together, the recovery rate is 98.33%. But we do that, it doesn't really tell us the picture of who's really not at risk and who may be. So when we put those visually together, we can look at cases nationally versus fatalities. It's the same picture that we saw in Oregon. Here's the kids, 0-17. They can't even be visualized on this. It's too small to sliver, 0.0887% of all fatalities. Cases 18 to 49, 54% of all of the cases, but only 4.6% of the fatalities. Cases 50 to 64, 20.6% of all the cases, 14.5% of the fatalities, but then we get to the 65 and older, 14.4% of the cases, 80.8% of the fatalities. And I take visuals so you can see where my source data is coming from. This is from the CDC COVID tracker. And you can see the death demographic versus the case demographic. Verify that. My team has done a little bit of data extrapolation. Our research has pointed to something that we're concerned about, and that is that the CDC changed the guidelines for reporting exclusively for COVID-19 on March 24th of last year. Had they used the existing guidelines that we use for literally everything else, our suspicion is right now, as of December 30th, there would be only roughly about 18,000 fatalities due to COVID-19, not the 301,000 that they were claiming before it is properly reviewed by the National Vital Statistics. So a couple more, and then we'll let me shut up here. We got the national causes of death. What I wanted to show you here is that as of the 30th, there were 2.9 million fatalities from all causes of death in the United States in 2020, and that 2.1 million of them occurred in Americans 65 or older, as we would suspect. When we look at the COVID fatalities, what we're seeing here is that 11.29% of the COVID fatalities make up 11.29% of these total deaths. So meaning that there's basically 89% of the fatalities were caused by other things. And we see that pretty consistently throughout here. We did a soft comparison of flu and pneumonia as well, because there's been a lot of talk about flu and pneumonia and how the CDC is grouping flu, pneumonia, and COVID all together, and it makes it very difficult for data analysis and everything. So I just wanted to leave you here with this. The final for 2020 isn't in yet in terms of how many official fatalities occurred in 2020. It may not be for some weeks, but I know there's a lot of talk about excess deaths. We're not going to get into that, but I would invite you, if you are curious, to do some research on what a bunch of epidemiologists call dry tenure. It's something my team is investigating right now. And what it basically says is that in the 2 years prior, we had fewer deaths than we thought we were going to have. Many of those people that lived in those years were over 65, and when you introduce a new virus to a weakened immune system, it's going to basically clear out what epidemiologists refer to as dry tinder, people who perhaps should have died a year or two prior. Okay, and I think that's what we're going to see. But I wanted to show you where some of the 2019 statistics come from. It comes from CDC Wonder, and you can see all the causes of death there. 2018, you can see the cause of death there. 2017, you can see the cause there. All the information's there. And then this is the source data we're using for the COVID data from the CDC, so you can see where everything's coming from. Now the last 3 slides I have for you today, and thank you again for your endurance, is that on December 30th, this is something we've been tracking. There's a breakdown between what the CDC is reporting and New York State Department of Health is reporting. As of December 30th, the CDC is reporting for the state of New York, excluding New York City, 12,354 fatalities. For New York City, the CDC is reporting 25,099 fatalities, for a total in the entire state of New York of 37,453 fatalities. However, New York State Department of Health is reporting 29,905 fatalities for that same day. This is a variance of 7,548 fatalities. The CDC is very clear that if there's a discrepancy, you should always trust the State Department of Health for the most accurate numbers. The problem that we have is that this variance was initially reported on April 30th. I reported it on April 30th, and it was at 5,306 fatalities. So this variance has never been corrected. It only continues to grow, which calls into question the accuracy of CDC data, unfortunately. And just so you can confirm what I'm saying, here's a screenshot of the New York State Department of Health and what they're saying in terms of fatalities, total fatalities, and here's what the CDC is saying in terms of total fatalities. So, gentlemen, that's what I have for you. I know it was really fast, so I'd like to open up the opportunity for questions, and I don't know how to stop sharing on here. There we go. Bingo.
Dr. Ely, thank you very much. I'm going to give, if you can hear me okay, I'm going to give the staff a 5 or 10 minute break, and we'll regroup here a little bit. I'm on the assumption that you're going to be available. I would like to talk about Dr. Seidlinger and your contacts there back during June. So I'm going to ask Coordinator Madison if that's okay. We'll come back in 5 or 10 minutes max. Is that okay? All right. Thank you all. We'll be right back.
Yes, sir.
There's something about having land and sea. Never having to choose between digging in or looking out. Here, you can go where the spirit or the wind moves you. To the tops of the trees, along secluded beaches, or into more wild and scenic rivers than anywhere else in the western United States. We're the closest place to the sunset while still keeping your feet dry, and a destination where anyone can begin. We share more than we keep, so you can see more than you imagined. This is a place you have to touch, hold, and feel to believe. The entire shoreline of the West Coast's best coast is open to you, and playgrounds made of forests are waiting for you. Escape to Curry County and don't leave anything out.
If yours is the next big idea, and you need the right place to fine-tune it, build it, launch it, if you're only your best when you can play more than you work, if inspiration comes from the outside, you belong in Curry County. The westernmost point of the land you love, and the edge between familiar and uncharted. Break the pattern. Be where the airports are as close as the beaches, and industry and recreation never cease to amaze. Dock, dive, and dine in a single day, and never lose your connection. This is the threshold of the West. Live where you can do you, and do it well, at the farthest point from ordinary. Curry County, living on the edge.
There's a shelter pet who wants to meet you. Meet one today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org. Adopt.
Wildfire, as everyone knows, has emerged as one of the big major issues affecting Oregon and, for that matter, all western states. A real actionable response that's including how do we fight fire, actively managing our forests so that we don't have the fuels out there, and how are we going to protect communities from smoke exposures. The council is really set up to have a comprehensive strategy that's based on action and based on protecting our communities.
The primary focus we as a board have come through with is that in researching the policies for fire management, yes, prescribed fire has its place on the landscape, but not during fire season. We, as a county, passed a proclamation that says once the state fire marshal declares fire season, it'll be nothing but full suppression, and recently took a resolution to the National Association of Counties, essentially says that they support coordination between agencies and local governments for the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens regarding fire. Prescribed fire, fire season, anything that affects our citizens.
This is Lily Morgan from Josephine County, and we are at the Rogue Leadership Forum today, looking at the best possible partnerships that we can come up with to fight the fire issues and the smoke issues that we're facing in Southwest Oregon. So looking forward to coming up with solutions and the partnerships to get the job done so we don't face what we had the last few years with catastrophic fires and smoke that invades our communities for months to come. So this is a good opportunity, and we hope to be successful in the outcome.
Seeing so many people come together has really been exciting for me because there's a lot of expertise, there's a lot of resources, and as we attempt to do a shared stewardship approach to keeping people safe, it's really important that we get together. So my name is Merv George Jr., and I'm the Forest Supervisor for the Rogue River Siskiyou National Forest. The first things is making sure to get fires out if they're threatening life and property. The second thing that I'm going to focus in on is when it's safe to do so, to put some fire on the landscape when it's cooler and not during fire season, to reduce these same fuels that are giving us so much fits during the fire season.
Bob Horton, I'm the Fire Chief of Jackson County Fire District 3 in Southern Oregon. The challenges that are facing us in terms of the mega fires and the wildfires that we've been experiencing out in this valley, particularly in the last couple of years, but across the state and across the region, incredibly concerning to us in the fire community, those in our communities in general, our constituents and our patrons are extremely concerned as they ought to be. And really the takeaway from the work that's being done now is this is an extraordinary collaboration of dozens on dozens of interested stakeholder groups who are coming together with a common purpose. It's really an inspiring showing of humanity to not only be able to provide for a greater quality of life for our people, but to be strong stewards of our land, so that our future for us and generations to come is incredibly bright.
Very pressing issue. It's bearing down on us. Fire season is approaching, and I am really interested in preventing my home and other homes in my community from being impacted by wildfire, specifically from being burnt down. That's my main reason for being involved.
Quite a collaboration of folks. We're here looking for practical solutions to help us unravel some of the issues surrounding wildfires today here in the state of Oregon. And my focus really is on planning for large wildfire events in advance of their occurrence. That way, when they do occur, we can respond more appropriately to those situations.
Well, I just think it's grand if all of the people all over the state have come together today to be concerned about water. It just warms my heart, because I know that they really will leave here today feeling more impressed about the water, because I have told them that we're all born in water. We cannot live without it. It's our job to take care of it, stop the garbage in the rivers and streams and oceans, because there's life in that water, and it's our job to keep it clean for them. Because we cannot live on this planet without the animal kingdom. I was in Ohio at the Ohio River with Dr. Emoto, the Japanese scientist who had proven water could heal. He and I stood on the riverbank and blessed the Ohio River that they had us come to do. And I prayed that God has still kept the river good for them over there. We were taught when we were little that prayer works. You too will remember your prayers, because they work. It has nothing to do with religion or church.
Why do counties matter? Simple. Counties
commitment to, and I think you kind of acknowledged that, but the discussion you had with him and the other doctor, that was back in June, late June, you said?
Yes, sir, June 30th.
Okay. I'm just wondering what the counties can do to close that gap. And, you know, he seems very approachable. I don't know if that's possible, but I just wonder if there's a part there, an approach that we could kind of help to bring the sides together, because the information you have is just absolutely fascinating, and I know he's got to be interested. At least I'm sure making that assumption based on the content of what he has communicated so many times in the various meetings that he's conducted around the state. Very consistent. So would you speak to that a little bit, please?
Yes, sir. Well, in that meeting, this was before the CDC's data tracker had been revamped and re-released. I think they re-released it on August 23rd, after the Health and Human Services Committee had kind of taken over data collection for about a month to 6 weeks over the summer. So we had been tracking the comorbidity statistics and the age demographic statistics every week from every single state health department and territory health department in the country. So we were one of the first teams to actually publish that data, and Dr. Seidlinger, at the time of our June 30th meeting, wasn't even aware of the national data in terms of age demographic and comorbidity. At that time, there were only 7 states reporting comorbidity demographics. New York State was one of them, so it gave us some statistical significance in our analysis of what was going on. So he was very grateful to see that data. In my interactions with Dr. Seidlinger and Ms. Heiberg, they were incredibly nice. The sense that I got was that they were very interested in discussing about nutrition. Dr. Seidlinger admitted that they hadn't done a good enough job with
nutritional advice for Oregonians, which is why I offered to volunteer to fill that void. And I want to be very clear that we're not here to pick a fight with anyone. You know, we're here to work with people. This is supposed to be an all hands on deck kind of a situation. And I think it's important to bring a variety of perspectives. So after that meeting, we tried to reach out several more times. We never got any responses from OHA or Dr. Seidlinger, which I was a little saddened by, but I don't fault anyone for that. Things happen. What came up for us, though, was we started looking around the country at the COVID task force that had been assembled around the country. And what we saw was they were filled with MDs and allopathic doctors and epidemiologists by and large, but there were no economists on there. There were no social workers. There were no mental health specialists. There were no nutritionists. There were no small business representatives. So the advice and guidance that you're getting out of the public health system is really homogenous in terms of perspective, in my opinion. And that's what we see with the guidelines. And if you stray from those guidelines, you're going to get slapped on the wrist for doing so. But it's really impossible to understand how a child might be suffering through mental health issues, or a business person might be suffering from mental health issues due to the stress of their business, without having those perspectives really represented in these think tanks. So what we were trying to do was collaborate with OHA and offer the nutritional side of things from a well-reasoned and peer-reviewed point of view, so that they could feel very good at it. We wanted no credit. I still to this day do not want any credit for any of my work. I don't care about any of that stuff. I care that we help each other, and I care that we're kind to each other, and I care that we're taking care of our citizens who are at risk, and also protecting our children. I care about that, and it weighs on me a great deal when I see the amount of suffering that I've seen over the last year, because I think we can do something about that. I know in my heart we can do something about that, and I know Oregon can lead the way for the entire nation to do something about that, and I want to be a part of that process.
Well, thank you again. I think what I'm going to do is see if the commissioners have any questions for you, and then I would like to bring Coordinator Madison back up. And I think we have one speaker on our end, and I think you may have one or two additional speakers that we would like to hear from, if that's accurate. So, commissioners, do you have any other questions?
Sir, I'm here to stay on as long as you need me.
Okay, terrific to hear. Commissioner Herzog?
No, great presentation. I got vitamins in my office. After this meeting, I'm going in there and taking them.
Well, they don't do any good in the bottle, sir.
Nope.
But we got to take the right ones, right? We got to promote publicly the right ones.
Take the right ones, yes.
So, Coordinator Madison, would you come up to the podium there, please? How do we want to proceed in the schedule here? I'm not rushing anybody. I think this is so important for the public to hear, and what a great learning experience.
Commissioner Pash, did you have any questions or comments? Okay, good. Well, I think it would be wise to look at the letter of support, the resolution that we drafted, in regards to the reopening business plan that Douglas County has submitted to Governor Brown's office in partnership with Oregon State Chamber of Commerce. I can pull a copy of that up if you'd like to see that.
Did we have any additional speakers that you're aware of?
Well, we do have some restaurant owners here. Didn't want to put on the pressure, but
I will.
I would love to hear from them. The other thing too is that I do have a copy of the letter and this presentation and everything to submit for JJ, and the draft resolution. Hopefully that you guys could review that and consider signing on Wednesday. I'd like to get that executed as quick as possible. You know, we're pretty much following in the footsteps of Yamhill County at this point in regards to the plan and the process of moving some of this forward, and the doctor has a really great point that he wants to just move forward and work together and respect one another, and so I have to remind myself of that as well in this process. So thank you again, Doctor.
Did we want Ms. Hinton-Palanter to take a few moments here? Was she on the schedule? I just don't want to leave her out.
Amber, did you want to chime in on anything?
Guess not.
I've got to say, if we're waiting for her to unmute, everybody has
There she did.
volunteered their time in this capacity.
I absolutely just wanted to say thank you so much for giving the public an opportunity to hear this information and for letting me, participate. And I really commend all of you for diving in, and I appreciate as a fellow business owner, COVID has not been easy as a mom and as someone who's had my daughter at home. I just really appreciate all that you're looking at to get a larger picture of the scenario, and thank you so much.
Thank you for sitting in and joining us today, and the meeting we had last week was very good, very good. So you want to introduce? Go ahead.
Summer, I'm sending you an updated version of the presentation right now. I removed one study that I had in a previous version of it, so I'm sending you the version that I presented for all the commissioners today.
Thank you. There were a couple of percentages left out, and they were noted CC, PhD, and I think you had mentioned you couldn't find those. They weren't the Oregon Health Authority, but the Curry County Public Health Authority. Is that correct, Doctor?
Yes, the Curry County Public Health Department is publishing about every 7 days. It looks like a letter that kind of summarizes some things, but it's not explicitly detailed, or at least I wasn't able to locate where the explicit detail in their data would be. So I wasn't able to explicitly analyze the Curry County data independent of what I found through the OHA.
If we were able
the
to...
OHA data that's available as limited.
I'm sorry.
Say that again?
If we were able to get a hold of that information, can I send that to you?
Yeah, I'll analyze it on the spot. Yeah, especially if you could get it through December 28th, I think would be an apples to apples comparison for all the data that we have compiled.
Thank you.
Yeah, the OHA updated Curry County, I assume was this morning, but it matched your figures at 272 officially this morning.
Okay.
Positive cases.
Who would like to go first? Jay Trost. So Jay Trost owns Fat Irish. He used to be our juvenile director here, so he certainly is in touch with what the superintendent is saying in regards to the kids. Been a basketball coach. He works part-time for the city of Brookings. Want me to keep going? I could.
Pool manager.
Yeah, he's overall cool guy. So.
Dr. Ely, he's going to challenge you to a one-on-one basketball game when you come to visit in Curry County, okay? My money's on you, though.
My money is too.
I think I'm going to cost you some money, Commissioner, because I'm sure he's going to annihilate me. I've been sitting on my butt too much for the last year.
And Commissioner Herzog is going to take on the winner. I'm past my prime. Thank you, Mr.
Commissioners,
Trost.
first of all, congratulations, Commissioner Herzog.
Thanks, Jay.
It's great to see you up here. And I appreciate the courage, number one, that it takes to examine this subject. This subject is so controversial on so many levels that, it becomes a difficult issue to talk about. And so the fact that you have enough courage to do so is inspiring. And Dr. Ely, your presentation is enough evidence to move forward. I just want to, I'll speak briefly as a restaurant owner, some of the challenges I'm sure everyone in here is aware of. Some of my behavioral analysis, that's one thing that I do understand a lot is behavior. It's what I did my entire adult life. And some of the challenges that we may see coming as the preliminary signs and symptoms have been coming through, but the ripple effect it is so small right now, comparative to what it will be and what it could be. So as I started, I'd like to just give a brief history, because it's been such a long year. Just a brief history of what's happened and where we are specifically in the business aspect of ones that have been shut down. So on March 12th, Oregon had its first COVID death. Tragic. March 16th, it was announced that we would be shutting down effective the next business day. Now, what did that mean for us? What did that mean for our citizens? What did that mean for the people that you know and love? It meant that the night of March 16th, we had to sit down with all of them. We had to let them go. For us in particular, it was the day before our biggest day of the year, where everybody's excited, where everybody has anticipated, built up, prepared for, and then you get told with a few hours' notice that you no longer have a job.
St. Patrick's Day.
St. Patrick's Day. And that was one of the most difficult days in my entrepreneurial career. It's not even close. It was the most difficult day. So we navigate. We were not prepared. Nobody's prepared, right? We had a few hours to prepare. So you don't have all the necessary needs to do a takeout on all these things that are required. So we start to feel our way, but we're on board. We understand. We're believing. We need to help this process. So it was, overwhelmingly, everybody was on board. Nobody questioned anything. It was extremely, at that point, it was 2 weeks to flatten the curve. All right? So by April, we were supposed to be back in business. And that's what we told all of our staff. And April comes. It's extended another 30 days. So you have this sense of helplessness, right, that's starting to draw in on everybody. And there's nothing you can do. As elected officials, nothing we can do. As a school board member, I was extremely frustrated because our kids weren't in school. And I know how devastating that portion is to the mental well-being of our children, needing the structure and the care that some of them only receive during those hours of time at school. And we just don't have that. And I was really concerned of not only what was happening to our children, but what the fallout was going to occur from this. So we get through April. We're told in 2 weeks, May 15th. So we're in week 8 now of no business. Some takeout, but mainly no business, no paychecks, no income. Now, it's staggering, right? And we all understand that. May 15th, we're given the framework, phase 1, 2, and 3. Curry County falls into phase 2. We're ready to go. We are excited. We move on. We are in phase 2 from May 15th until just before Thanksgiving. Right? That's a significant amount of time to extrapolate a significant amount of data with restaurants being open, with all of the precautions in place. Just like Summer had said beforehand, she read that emotional testimony from a restaurant owner about every aspect that we have to go through to ensure the safety of our staff and our guests. So we go and we work really hard to knock it out of the park. On July 4th, the governor announces she's going to send out her entire teams to go audit restaurants. So they audit 800 facilities over the 4th of July time period. The busiest time in the restaurant industry in the summer, right? 9 violations of 800 restaurants. That is an incredible statistic amount of doing what we're supposed to be doing, right? So we get this information and we move forward. So we get closed down, obviously, again, just before Thanksgiving, and then again during December, and currently are open to outdoor and dine and take out, right? So, but another piece of data that I'd like to share is the OHA tracks your the workplace outbreaks, right? This should be staggering. If we are an industry that has to be closed, that employs 9% of Oregonians, right? That is not a small percentage of our workforce. Out of the 75 businesses listed in the outbreak, 3, if you include a fast food place, which we will, there were 5,351 counted in the outbreaks, workplace outbreaks. Of those, 27 came from restaurants. That's 0.005% of the workforce outbreaks were facilitated by restaurants over a period of time from May 15th to just before Thanksgiving, an enormous sample set where it could have been completely different. It proves that we were doing all of the work that we needed to be doing to keep each other safe and keep each other employed. I don't know, between the information that Dr. Ely gave and the information that is available to us, because the real concern that I think many of us share is that we have to go to these lengths that Dr. Ely's doing to get accurate information because it's not being provided, as evidenced by the public records advocate resigning the day before yesterday, stating undue pressure for not being able to release documents. Like, we can't even get the accurate information unless you do these extrapolating data digs like Dr. Ely just did. So what I'd like to say is, number one, I hope you've heard every piece of information that you need to make an informed decision. And I hope that you make a decision that benefits everybody who is your constituents, right? All 23,000 constituents, that we put in protections. If we get another opportunity to provide a stimulus to our county, that we reinvent how we can do those things by maybe placing some of those dollars into opportunities to protect our vulnerable, transportation services, delivery services, so that the rest of us can focus on working. We don't want stimulus money. We want to work. We want to have our people work. We don't want to tell people that we only have 5 hours for you this week, and I'm sorry, and I don't have anything else to tell you. And I hope the unemployment department helps you out a little bit. That's not okay. And frankly, all of us, we're done. We are so done. And I hope you are too. And I hope it doesn't end here. I really do. I hope that you take this and you reach out to the other 36 counties commissioners and you implore them to take the same action, because strength isn't going to come in your power. It's in your influence, in your ability to influence others at this point. That's what we elected you for, to make these decisions, to assist the rest of us in being able to prosper and not suffer worse than what's being portrayed on the news. It's just, we need that. If there's one thing I would ask, it's that you spend the next 2 weeks just reaching out, communicating, and don't stop dialing. Get to these other leaders. Get everybody on board, because when there's numbers, then there's power. Use your influence to motivate these individuals, because everybody's on the cusp. They just need a little extra lift, some confirmation that what they're feeling is right, as Dr. Ely just provided most of everyone in this room. So with that, I just want to thank you guys for everything you said. And Dr. Ely, thank you too.
Stay up there, Jay. Stay up there. Commissioners?
No.
You're okay?
Yeah, good presentation.
Well, we have 2 days, basically 48 hours to get this approved, and the assumption the board is interested in doing that. There's been a lot of behind-the-scenes work go into this. Anytime I get a chance to connect with, and this has been said many times, with Douglas County and Jackson County, I see we lost Commissioner Roberts, but if anybody can help spread the word, as you recommended, it would be her in the Jackson County Commission Board, certainly Douglas County. So we have our relationships out there within the state, and it is our responsibility, and this is based on solid science, good information, and we don't have any better option. So no time for delay. I appreciate Coordinator Madison's work on this. If you get to know Mary Starrett from Yamhill County, where this really has originated, and the courage she has to step out on a limb and say, we're going to help our restaurants. Mr. Ely, you mentioned, Dr. Ely, you mentioned that, and this really rang true with me in the first meeting that we had. This is to work with the state, not in even some superficial way, but in a very direct, very caring, genuine way to say, we're here, we're part of the team. This is the information we have that you can respond from, and here we go. I'm excited to be able to work on this. I'm excited to be able to recommend it around the state, and again, following the lead of Yamhill County, and your lead and your staff. And Jay Trost, that was very inspirational, very much appreciated, and the timing could not be better. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Who else?
George Rhodes, restaurant owner in Brookings, Oregon. Or the restaurant owns me, I guess, I should say. That and my creditors now. Hard act to follow. And I know exactly where he's coming from, because I've been spending my days in the trenches too lately. I think it's best for the commissioners to consider their options, and certainly the fact that the governor has made some threats recently about what would happen if the counties decided to go against her rules. That's concerning. But I've given up my freedoms enough. I don't need the governor who can't get the unemployment department to send unemployment checks to my employees to try to micromanage my business any longer. It's killing me, and it's killing my staff. The first shutdown, we had 26 employees. When we opened back up, we opened up with 12 because we could only seat 25% of our seating capacity. Last time we closed down, we only had 8 come back. So I may be running my restaurant with just myself and my wife if we ever do open back up.
Yeah.
This is critical. And I'll leave you with one thing that Thomas Jefferson said back in the 1800s. One man with courage is a minority. If you believe that is a majority, I'm sorry. If you believe that, then 3 men with courage is a supermajority. I encourage you to pass this resolution that's going to be before you on Wednesday. Thank you.
We'll stand with you. That's easy to say, but if we got to stand next to your restaurant and help all of our restaurants. When I went down there the first part of December, I reported to the board. That was an incredible time for me to talk to those restaurant owners and just to see just like you did, you both stated today, it's time. We've done everything. You've done everything that's been asked of you from the very beginning. Jay just very well articulated that whole time sequence, time frame, and we're not going to let them take your licenses. We're not going to let them, the Yamhill, and I think this needs to be said, Coordinator Madison, correct me if I'm wrong, but the way this is set up with the ordinance that we want to pass is that this shows, if there's any litigation, it shows the extent that the restaurants have gone. It shows the data that supports that no jury That might be a little bit too simple to state, but nobody's going to do anything except support you. And we got to go on that common sense. We have to have the courage to step out to do that, I think.
I would agree with you. I think that collaboratively we have the courage. I can't speak on behalf of the governor and OLCC and OSHA as to what their plans are, and I can't give any kind of legal insight on that, but we're going to do our best, and hopefully we can get our goals pushed through circuit court and follow the good lead of Yamhill and our partners that are on the same track. And I will say that Jay Trost was really right, because this has been something that I've been, as long as our restaurants and small businesses have struggled, I have struggled professionally. The longer this is drawn out, the more of a strain it is on my job. And Jay was right when he said, you just speak out. There's so many people on the fence. And as soon as Commissioner Rhodes came about a month ago and said, we need to have this conversation, I was like, there's the door, it's open. And now I don't feel like the bad guy bringing that up, because he brought that. And I can tell you we're getting many communications from small businesses that are very scared, but supportive of the movement. So we'll just tally those numbers up. Would you like me to submit this resolution to JJ, or how would you like to move forward on that?
Is it on the agenda for Wednesday?
Yeah, it is.
And we have plenty of time to read again and prepare.
Yes, I know that County Council Huddle had reviewed the original resolution, and then we were asked to kind of revisit the way that looks, and so I've done that. And
I was sorry, could I? I was primarily interested in some of the resolution had some statements in it that I thought would be helpful to have supported by facts, and I think the kind of facts that the doctor's given and the statistics and then the experiential testimony we've had from the restaurant owners is the kind of facts that go in there for the board to make the kind of decision.
That's actually, you were looking for that in the very beginning.
That's what I just talked to Summer. I'd communicated that with Summer before, yeah.
so in effect, we actually have two resolutions here we're talking about.
Okay, thank you.
And so the one that Council Huddle's referring to is the resolution in support of moving forward in the same fashion as Yamhill County,
yes.
Right? Then the other one that I have is in support of Douglas County and their plan for reopening.
But together they give credibility to the whole movement.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, I didn't know there were two different resolutions. I'm sorry about that. Okay.
All good.
Okay.
All right.
Anything else, gentlemen?
It's never wrong to do the right thing, and the right thing is to open the doors. So.
Thank you all.
Okay, we're going to try and wind down by 4:30. Would that give our next discussion is request to discuss staff funding from transient lodging tax and
Thanks,
to
guys.
the event center? Thanks again, guys.
Commissioner, Commissioner, do you need me for anything else today, sir?
I should have excused you, but thank you very much. No, I think we're in good shape.
Thanks.
We'll be talking to you again.
Commissioners, thank you very much for the opportunity. We really appreciate it.
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you again, Dr. Ely.
They want to close that? Yeah. You can close that meeting too.
See you, George.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
You bet.
Yeah, you can put yours a little lower.
Watch out, if you're hungry, you might get your belly rumblings because I'm too short.
Get you out of here. I'm going to try.
I just got, doctor's got to be there. I've got to meet him at 4:40.
Yeah, I'd like to be out by 4:30. I have a few things I need to do outside of our meetings here at work before the end of the day.
Thanks
Some
for
with
hanging
the
in.
court.
Got
Yep.
2 deaths on the ranch.
I got nothing. You know what you're doing?
Ms. Coleman, Mr. Chobani, welcome.
How you doing?
Curry County Fair Event Center.
Sure. And just to make sure so you got the record straight, is actually as officially as the 31st, I'm not on the fair board, but we're waiting for. I put the application in, so the confirmation from you guys.
Just
soon. But just so you know.
Yeah, while we're here, I had an email from Ms. Coleman today asking that they had a few vacancies on the board. JJ, I thought we had some appointments to the fair board recently, or are those pending?
That was to replace a vacancy that was in the summertime.
Yes.
Got,
We had a resignation earlier.
People who applied are standing in front of us, so it's not the lady.
Wow, and so, okay.
So the situation for that is this summer we had a resignation. We had a replacement for that was appointed. Now we have 2 positions that ended effective the end of the year. So we have those 2, but we also have an additional resignation. Did you get the copy of that resignation?
Yeah,
DJ?
yes, I did,
Perfect.
and
So we essentially have
One more
3 openings that need to be filled, and I, being new, was not aware what the process for those appointments was supposed to be. I've since found out the director of operations is responsible for that, but he's had kind of a lot on his plate lately and is also new, so we're all kind of learning here. We just need to, we have been trying to, I didn't want to post anything on our page until we knew that the openings in the application was available, so we shared a little bit that we're looking for people. So hopefully within the next week or so we're going to get some applications. I know Bob has submitted his re-application already.
Good.
But
All right, yeah, I just thought it'd be good while everyone's here in the room that we bring that up so that gets some light. So good, thanks. I didn't mean to distract from what we're doing here otherwise. Sorry,
No,
Commissioners.
it'd be really good.
Doing good.
So we'll do that. I'd like to, first of all, since Commissioner Herzog is new and we have a new administrator, I have a couple of copies of the master redevelopment plan that the other 2 commissioners have already have.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Ms. Coleman, how much time do you need?
we shouldn't need more than 25-30 minutes. We should be within your time frame.
20 minutes would be better just in this. We might
Yeah,
lose one
it shouldn't be
commissioner
too
here.
much. Mostly, we have a quick ask and a little bit of background on the legal side of TLT, and then some photos, since we can't do in-person tours too often, but there's some visuals that might be fairly impactful. Okay, let's see if I can figure out how to do this though. So in 2003, the statewide TLT tax was established through House Bill 2267 and codified in the ORSs, and is used to fund tourism commission programs. The result on the local TLTs versus the statewide TLTs is that any new TLT after 2003 must be at least 70% directed towards tourism industry in the form of promotion and related facilities. What that means is that the definitions that the ORS provides for tourism promotion agencies and related facilities is basically advertising for tourism, doing strategic planning and research to figure out developmental plans related to tourism, operating agencies, marketing events and festivals, government or nonprofit agencies that their sole purpose is mostly tourism year-round, and conference centers, convention centers, and information centers. I personally believe that the event center and county fairgrounds falls a little bit into all 3 of these items. And in regards to that, the Econ Northwest did a study that showed the use and the incomes and expenditures of local TLTs across the state. The final study was given at the beginning of 2020, which came down to, it showed how much was brought in the different locals, which is also city and county, and then what different localities used them for, and they broke it down into different programs, which is, there's several more than this, but these are kind of the ones that I felt fit the event center the best. The related facilities, was used for operations and maintenance, capital improvement projects, revenue that was set aside for future capital improvement projects that may be at a higher cost than the money available, also used for social media and websites, promotions of events, promotions of the facility, community events, our county fair, multi-day events, festivals, parades, those kind of things, but also for beautification of grounds, other capital projects within economic development, professional services, Main Street initiatives, which we have a fantastic Main Street here in Gold Beach, and general services of fairgrounds, facilities maintenance, and additional capital improvements. We, as an event center, in my personal opinion, coming onto this job, it's our responsibility and our goal to work within the county to continue to provide services for all the aspects of our county, and that includes, you know, the tourism and the restaurants that are struggling so bad right now. As we just heard, you know, we want to be able to support and promote and provide to help with all of that. There's a lot of different ways that we have the ability to do that, even within COVID. But with COVID, just like anybody else, there's struggles, there's obstacles that we are going to come up against, and one of our biggest ones is just the facilities and grounds in itself, and our staff, and our ability to maintain and develop and keep it healthy, so to say. We've got a large property and not a lot of staff to take care of it. But that being said, if it was not for the county and the city TLTs that have been approved and made available to us, there's a good chance we would be closing our doors, which is a problem that a lot of county fairgrounds are facing at this point. These are the numbers that have been made available to us now. This year we were budgeted for $100,000 from the county TLT tax. So far that's up to 181, which is phenomenal. The city TLT we've been allocated just over $300,000. We've spent $186 on 2 separate roof projects, and they have already approved up to an additional $250,000 for us to do an arena roof repair this year. So with that, we've got a lot of support from both the county and the city of Gold Beach for recognizing the projects that need to happen and the importance of the event center, which we really appreciate. This is an overview of the property. We've got 14.5 acres. We currently have 1 part-time maintenance man. That's a lot. The pictures you're going to see here soon with some explanation from Bob is going to be a little eye-opening, I hope, and we'd love to invite you down to come and see it in person.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And to put it in a little bit more explanation about part-time help. Part-time help is one person that's been historically keeping it at 19 hours a week. And that's with the manager, 19 hours a week, the assistant, 19 hours a week. And that is to keep, so we don't have to pay the health insurance thing as it goes up. If we were to avoid the PERS expenditures, our employees can only work 11.5 hours a week. So you're looking at trying to manage 14.5 acres with 90,000 square feet of buildings that you're about to see the conditions in is going to be terrible. The nice thing about it, the board and the actions that are moving forward with the support from the city and the county on this TLT is that we're looking to move forward to turn this into an economic benefit to the entire county, which would then, when we bring in these new events and new things, when things do change, it would also be self-generating funding. The problem is, once you do these things and make these changes in this construction that we're doing, you have to have some type of supervision, some type of somebody to monitor and work with the contracts to do that, and yet we still can't have one person in the office doing that. And members of the board do kind of take up some slack where we can and do what we can do that, but it even gets tough. Because I had, just a couple weeks ago, I got a phone, hey, there's a leak going on, and I ran down on a Sunday to go watch water bubbling out of a pipe. So we got that turned off to do that. So we are in a lot of situations here where we need to get done, and I wanted to share this with you. And what's quite interesting is when we're going through this, I also found a from 2000, the maintenance and repair and survey for existing buildings. And I can give you some of that information, but it shows you that a lot of this deferred maintenance that we come here came at a heavy price. It is, just for a quickie on this here, it says, just make sure I get the numbers right. Yes.
He's looking for which example he wants. The one that stuck out to me when I looked through it was the showcase building. Many of you know we just replaced the roof and we're in the process of doing siding, and we just did the flooring in the inside of it. We've probably put, close to $80,000 into it in the last 2 months or so.
Yes.
The repair report for this in January of 2000 was that it needed a paint job, but otherwise in good repair, and that paint job would cost $400.
So what had happened was when we came in to do this and do the siding, do the painting and the floors of the interior of the building. Once they did the painting, it decided to rain one day. Then we saw the ceiling started to fall down, the cottage cheese up on the ceiling. So we had to get in and get the roof repaired. Then Caitlin got a hold of the city, and Jody and the city got together and said, we'll take care of this and get this done and make it part of the other roofers since they were there, because that process took almost a year to get those roofers after years of trying to get other roofers just to give us a price. So they stepped in, and once that got done, they went up there to fix roof, got that taken care of, and the siding needed to get done. And when they pulled the siding off, you'll see what's coming out, and I'll get ahead of myself here to do that. So we'll go into the same. But my main thing is, when we look at this 2000 report said the total cost for all the essential repairs would have been $650,000. So we deferred maintenance to almost probably close to $500,000 of that over the years.
At least, probably way more.
So here's our arena, some of the looks of our arena. The arena, Mr. Ruckert, is it? Rickard. I don't know if you're familiar, but it's the large building we have down below, and we have our horsey fence and rodeos and a lot of other things that go on through fair. This kind of shows you during the condition, not very appealing to look at. This door here is what some of the boarders use to go in and out, and that little gate is up because the door doesn't close or open or do anything. Yeah. There's another door, everything's fallen off, very unsafe. These doors here, wind and rain blows right through them. Everything's ready to fall off. This is a very secure method of putting a metal strap across these doors so they don't fall. And the 2x4 across these doors hold them on. Not a situation that is for life safety. So it's not just cosmetics. We're also looking at safety issues and security issues. And you can't secure it without it. Here's our little gap in the door. This is as far as it gets down to do that. And here's some more conditions of the arena.
While we have this picture here, you can see the ground a little bit there. We recently moved out horse boarders that were boarding their horses in stalls in the arena. We moved them out for multiple reasons, one being that the unsafe conditions of the arena. The second, as you can see, we've got some lovely holes.
This is the roof. And
let's do this.
Yes.
We've seen this.
Okay.
And spent time. No, you're doing fine.
Okay.
We've spent time down there. So I might have missed it, but you're asking us to help you even promote taking. I mean, 70% goes to visitor promotion. Are you asking us to, over time, consider taking some of that to better repair and address these needs?
No. What our ask right now is that, first to say, we appreciate the support that we have, the funds that are available to us. What our ask right now is that of the 35% that we already receive, we would like to be able to utilize a portion of that we already get to help cover payroll costs, so that we can add additional staff to help with maintenance and functionality of the office, so that we can be open the days that we need to be open. We can spend the time doing the contracts and connections that we need to do, that we can keep up the maintenance and facilities. That way, when we put in the money for the work, it stays kept up, because the staff that we have isn't enough to keep it up where it needs to be and improve it so that it can be utilized the way that it needs to be utilized.
Commissioner Pash?
I just see, that we need to be really transparent with this. When we brought this to the voters, we promised the voters that we wouldn't tap into that money for anything other than. So I think as a board, we just need to be very careful of how we spend the money, and if it's needed, that you're very transparent with us and whoever else to make sure that people understand.
Yeah.
Because this is something that was part of our promise to the public to get this through, was that we wouldn't in a year or two go back on what we promised when we asked them to vote for the TLT money.
Right.
So I don't want to rescind that promise to the public either. So all I'm asking the board to do is be very careful, as I'm asking you to be as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and two of the things too came up to that is to make sure to show that this is what these funds are being used for. So you see the need to do that, and then we're also to continue that on. This is to do this and make sure that they are upkept and they are done. And who knew that? I said we're same situation with the COVID situation. It killed whatever income that we had that would put us through for the year to help to have the facilities, the capabilities to maintain these buildings, to do that
So
for this purpose.
Great job on the roofs. I think what we need is just a written proposal, and I'm sure you've already thought of that, and something that the board can look at.
There's one.
Pardon me?
Did we already write one or not somewhere? I can't remember.
Is it at the end of the presentation?
So initially, go ahead. Did you have something?
No, it is, and part of that, as I said, in the pictures you're showing us where we're going, part of it goes right in line with Commissioner Pash's saying, it's like the transparency. There is a real need for this money. This is what's being done. This showcase room here is the new floor that we're putting in there. It's one of our primary income accounts. Recently, I believe it's Sony Pictures came up, took a visit. They're going to be doing some filming locally pretty soon. And because they saw what's going on with this, they're looking at renting the facility, which is bringing people from the outside, a draw coming in. They're going to have to stay in hotels. They're going to have to eat in restaurants that are hopefully one day are opened here soon to do that. And this is part of the income producing to benefit the entire county, is to make sure that we're properly using the funds for what the purposes are. So it's just kind of a clarification of that.
Good.
And along those lines, Commissioner, I think you're absolutely fair and correct in saying that we need to have the transparency. And I can't speak for the general public, obviously, but my hope would be that when they voted for the TLT in support of the event center, that our ability to be open to them to come and talk to us or answer phones or emails, as well as keep the facility looking like it hasn't been abandoned, would be a part of that. Because when I see these properties all the time. I'm there, I walk through them, I know what they look like. But seeing them in pictures kind of brings it to a different level. When I looked through these earlier, all in a slideshow, it made me really sad. I have a lot of hope for this property, and I know that it can be a very good self-supportive facility once we get it back to where it needs to be. But we have to utilize the funds the right way so that we can. And that includes having the staff to be open and to keep the grounds kept up to look in a way that people like Sony Pictures want to actually utilize it. If we can't keep it cleaned and painted and keep the garbage down, then they're going to come and be like, yeah, no thanks. I'm going to go look somewhere else.
Council Huddle?
Well, I just have a question. I'm looking at the ordinance in our Article 8, Division 2, and it says, and so there's like a 70-30 split, 70% for tourism, tourism promotion and tourism-related facilities, and then 30% for general county, and I think we put that 30% all to somewhere. Sheriff? Yep. So then, out of the 70% that was left, the original ordinance for implementing this said, subject to BOC approval, half shall be allocated to the county fair fund event center account. And then my understanding of that is the fair board, by statute, is charged with administering the event center account. And so once the board says, okay, this half of the 70 goes to the event center account, then it's in the fair board's hands. However, on November 4th, we had our second reading on an amendment to this ordinance, and that changed that, and it said,
15%.
yeah, 15% shall be used to cover staff expenses involved in tourism and marketing, and I'm not, and then to me, that's county staff expenses and not fair board staff expenses? Okay, and then it says 40%, so that's adds up to 55%. Shall be allocated to the Fair Fund Event Center account for capital improvement projects. So we just made an ordinance to do the capital improvement project. So now you're saying out of that 40%, you're saying could the fair have a percent for its own
out of the percentage
people?
that we're already giving, could we utilize some of that funding, whether it be a percentage or a set amount, towards staff expenses? So that we can keep it up. You know, we have our regular payroll expenses that we pay, but especially during COVID era, we don't have enough funding to support more staff.
Yep. So we just approved a change to give you actually less. You were going to get half. Now you're getting 40%, and then we approved a change to make that only for capital improvement projects. And so,
unfortunately, we didn't get to get in on those discussions beforehand.
yeah, I really wasn't sure where they came from. Nevertheless, my understanding is it does now, and it used to say subject to Board of Commissioners approval, and then now it says subject to Budget Committee approval, which is slightly different because the Board of Commissioners, I think, could. So let's say this was some type of a grant. If you have a grant for a capital improvement project, usually included in that is a percentage for administration. So it's entirely possible out of the 40%, and you're saying you roughly have already received, well, it's all a paper transaction, right? It goes through our budget group, but somehow the board would have had to say, yes, you are getting this 40% or the 50% or whatever, but then, so the board needs to have approved that somewhere, and maybe they did, but this change was just made in November. But anyway, 40% goes to the fair fund, and you're saying you've got $180,000? Okay.
That's the most updated number that we've been given.
Okay.
That was in the budget.
I thought 100,000 was budget.
100,000 in the budget, but 180,000 is what's been collected. 185, our portion.
Your portion. Okay, so somewhere along the lines, the board, according to this, has to do something to approve that transfer. And then, in my opinion, what they could do is of that 40%, so 180,000, what's 5% of that?
70,000.
70? So if we did a 5% admin, they could use not to exceed, I mean, would that be enough to cover these two people? Does everyone, you're obviously tracking Commissioner Pash, is this making, do you
Yeah,
need
that's
any
why
further
I'm
discussion?
liaison to them, and we've
Yep.
talked about this, and I'm
Okay.
kind of familiar with everything.
All right.
So
Yes.
it's actually $70,000,
Coordinator
$400.
Madison?
So, in all efforts of transparency, when I learned that the TLT was going to be revised to include more admin dollars, I did suggest that there be outreach to the event center because I knew that they were struggling to have enough staff to execute all these capital improvement projects. That didn't happen, so we started the conversation. We know there was
We just didn't get into it quite early enough to get in on the last one.
Yeah, so the amendment happened, unfortunately, without the input of the event center needs. But here's the deal. They're really pushing through these capital improvements because nobody's using the event center right now. They have the most proactive board I've ever seen, and I'm really proud of you guys. The management is, like, outstanding, and so the momentum between the two and the community is amazing, and I don't want to lose that momentum because COVID for the event center anyways, has kind of been a blessing because we can just hammer out those capital improvement projects. And it's funny because historically we've never had the money. Now we have the money and not enough staff. So the recommendation was that maybe you guys look to amend that, or we look at it from a contract perspective for a project manager type position to alleviate some of the stress on the staff right now. They can't keep up. And then we bring it to the budget committee in January and maybe look at revising it then. I just wanted to throw that out there because this is...
And I know, part of the concern is making sure that we follow the bills and the ORSs and everything the way that it needs to be followed, and that we do have the consistent transparency through everything. And that's part of why I've spent a good amount of time recently going into some of these studies to find out what it can and can't be used for, how it can and can't be used, what other places are using it for, so that we know that we're not going in ways that we shouldn't go.
Commissioner Pash.
Quick question, have you applied for any CARES Act money on this?
I have tried. However, because we are technically government, we have not been eligible for anything.
So we've talked about that as well. I mean, we've explored so many options, like becoming a tourism promotions agency that makes them eligible through the state for funding, so that it doesn't look like they're having to come to the commissioners all the time. The other thing is we've talked about a special district that would possibly register them as a nonprofit.
For 50.
Sorry.
We've looked at a lot of different things. We have a lot of discussions in the work. There's a lot of stuff. There's even one of the CARES things that was written to specifically include fairgrounds. We ended up not being eligible for because of even though you're county government, they were eligible through that, but because we were county government, there's only specific expenses that we would qualify for, and because of COVID, we completely shut down to not have those expenses, so there wasn't anything for us.
Okay. So here's where we are. I think you have support here in a general sense, and we'll just leave it up to you to bring back what you want to promote and recommend, and we'll go from there. And I heard Coordinator Madison say, a little bit of a direction there, so let's see how that goes and see what else you need from us.
Yeah, I think the important part too is trying to just for a little bit of context to help me out with these buildings. The arena was built in the 70s, the restaurant 77, Showcase was built in 1995, Dosha was built in 1960, and the office was built in 1950. The floral building was built in 1940s. So we're at a point with a board that's, as you can see, just by branding, what we try to do to make this look fresh and everything, is that we're in a position of doing things that hasn't been seen in decades at the event center. And it's scared a lot of people, and it's excited a lot of people. And I think more people are excited about the possibilities of what we can do as a community partner with the entire county, what we can do for the county to do that. And since these many projects have not been going on all at the same time, it is difficult to manage to do that. And yet at the same time, we're still utilizing volunteer services. Just recently, we took the...
We're going to have to wind down, Bob.
Yeah, just recently we took the livestock building, and we took the 4-H area, volunteers, cleaned that up, built storage areas so we can put stuff down so it opens up. Now we're going to be able to rent that facility out for like dog training classes and stuff like that. So yeah, there's a lot of things going on right now because this board is really moving forward, and Caitlin's right up on top there with us to do that.
Okay.
So that was the website. You guys got to go check out the website. It's pretty cute. And if you weren't aware, we hosted the event center hosted the first Curry Christmas at the event center. We had a parade. We had a huge live tree. Got donations for all the lights. Got volunteers to deck the place out. This community was overwhelmed in joy for that. So
we missed the Christmas and Thanksgiving dinner, so we're going to look for you to coming back.
All right, thank you.
So we're going to close the workshop January 4th, 2021.
So we have a executive session, yes.
I got to get this. Do we need microphones?
What is not removed will decay, add fuel to an even greater future fire threat, and in the process, release the greenhouse gases that the trees gathered and stored during the centuries they were alive. When all of the trees across the tens of thousands of acres burned in each of these megafires are left to rot, millions of tons of destructive greenhouse gases are released into the upper atmosphere. These are the same volatile organic compounds that have been identified as some of the most damaging elements we can put into our air. In contrast, trees harvested soon after the fire is out drive the economic engine that employs people, provides revenue for the critical restoration and reforestation.
No.
Well, no, we're in regular session first. Yes, please.
JJ, do you have to put this one back in?
Yeah.
We have to go into regular session first, and then executive session.
Never mind. Thank you.
Sorry.
Okay, we're going back into
Not yet. He's got
regular session. That's for executive session. So we're going back into regular session and recess for executive session.